Good morning, everybody. Let me get a mic check out there. How are things going? Can everybody hear me all right? My computer is running a little sluggish. I don't know why everything is so delayed. Had a little bit of a reschedule this morning. Let me get a mic check. Make sure everything's good. Good, thank you. Thanks for the mic check. All right, well, we had Alan P lined up to go live to continue our discussion from last week, but he got a little bit delayed, so I had to scramble and just go live myself here. We're going to have a fun morning talking about some of this altcoin madness. We're going to look at Solana. What's up with that chart? I put some kind of negative thoughts out on the interwebs about Solana on Twitter. But we'll talk about the positives maybe a little bit here. Why is it pumping so much? I don't want to be negative all the time. But as usual, nothing that you hear here is financial advice. Everything that we talk about today is just my opinion about what I see going on in the markets. And if you end up blindly taking any of these trades or buying anything based on something that you hear here today without doing your own research, you're going to end up losing all your money and living in a van down by the river. Now, that said, I'm a no hype, all reality type of YouTube channel here, and we're an extension of the CTM community here. So we trade. The way that we trade is conquering the market style trading. So if you want to know more about that, there's a link in the description below about how that trading system works. But we'll start with the heartbeat, the pulse of the market. Good morning, everybody. I was going to start focusing on my work day. Yeah, I've got some things I got to get done today too, so we'll make this a quick session. But Bitcoin's breaking up out of this kind of consolidation pattern we had. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I got a little bit knocked around here on this big sell-off. So I had some leverage positions open that we opened. I bought the dip coming into the support level right here, and then I added on resumption over here. And then ended up getting stopped out underneath here as this sell-off happened. I was actually having a panic moment because when I logged into my trading account, so that was my stop was down here below that support level. So between there and there, it's pretty much yet again another break-even trade. I've had one win, 2 break-evens, and 1 loss on leverage. And this big wick down really just got me out of leverage again. But for this big sell-off, it kind of came out of nowhere, but we saw it breaking down. I was actually live when it started to break down here, and I said, we'll see what happens with this trend line. And I didn't have time to react to it. Actually, by the time I got off the live stream, I was trying to log into my account to tighten up that stop loss to right there, and I could not log in. That would have been a nice little small profit if I could have, but I could not log in at all. I had to live with the stop loss I had on here. But when I logged in, my account balance looked very weird compared to what I would have expected it to be, and it was just some anomaly. I guess it cleared up after a little bit. It was showing the full balance, like the stop loss had not hit, and I was able to log in kind of as things stabilized over here, and it just hadn't updated that it actually had sold at the stop over here. So for a good early part of yesterday, I had a little bit of a heart attack moment, like, uh-oh, did my stop loss not execute, or did it slip all the way down here, or what happened? But it ended up being okay. Obviously the market's been a little bit challenging here with this big sell-off that kind of came. This much of a sell-off came out of nowhere. Like I would have expected personally a little bit more, a bounce here and a bounce here, but it just sliced right through all that. Probably because of the liquidity. If you looked at the funding futures rate, Alan and I talked about last week. The liquidity had been built up quite a bit in the altcoin market, and the altcoins have been going crazy. Now I can't find my Sol USD on here. No, I have one. There's a Sol BTC. Let's add a Sol USD on this list just in case. Let's just add FTX since it's basically FTX's coin. I want to talk a little bit about Outrun and Solana today, and then what the story is versus Bitcoin and Ethereum. Let's take a look at comments. Any questions before we get rolling here? Good morning from Arizona. Outrun is pumping. So I said the other day, Elrond was after a lively Twitter debate with some people on Twitter about Cardano versus Elrond. Now, I had maintained up until that point that I thought Cardano was the better investment, but Elrond was always my second favorite, has been for, I don't know, since late last year, right? When I researched them all, I went the Cardano route instead of the Elrond route early on because I just saw they had a bigger community, more potential hype, and the tech had been worked on longer, so there was more pent-up demand for it, right? So when it went live, I thought this would happen, and sure enough, it happened, like pretty much like this. Now, after doing some deep dive research on, let me turn this music down so it's distracting the heck out of me. I'm still listening to this over here. After doing some deep dive research on, Cardano versus Elrond, and then what Elrond's ecosystem is all about, I came to the conclusion that, yeah, the Elrond guys had a point. The market cap difference between Cardano and what is going on with my computer? I'm sorry, everybody. Like, my computer is completely. I'm gonna have to reload this thing as soon as I got this live stream. All right, but the market cap difference is, was bigger than I kind of was thinking it was at the time. Let's see what it is today here. But when I really stopped and thought, okay, Cardano had reached a $90 billion market cap. And, at the time, Elrond was $3 billion when I was really doing that research. It's probably lifted that's up to $4 billion now. Right around $3 billion. And so after doing a deep dive on it, and I had researched before, I had read the white paper before everything else, and I always liked what I read. I just always thought that Cardano had the better opportunity, especially for this bull phase, and coming into the smart contracts launch and all the other hype around it. And sure enough, that actually proved to be true, right? If you look at, Cardano versus Bitcoin, and you look at the same chart on Elrond versus Bitcoin, you'll see that all in all, Cardano has done better so far. But after looking at the chart, both the breakout of this consolidation here, where we at on Bitcoin over here, I considered, this is the better opportunity, I thought, right now. Solana. I would say that looks like a really good chart. It's like off the it's lifting off a little bit here. Elrond, EGLD, BTC. Where'd I put that? Type these in here. But yeah, after looking at this chart and considering the breakout that we had, breakout, retest, resumption through here, I started buying on this retest here. This is where I started buying Elrond, and I added on this retest here. Right, those are the two major purchases of Elrond. The first of which was a purchase made just from Bitcoin, and this was a purchase made of rotating some Cardano to Elrond. So far that's working out pretty well. I think that's the next best project with some potential. Again, banned by the river, not financial advice. Good morning, but I do think, Solana had quite the run. It's still on quite the run. I mean, I shouldn't say had. It still is on quite the run. Why is my video drivers all messed up today? I don't know. All right. Nothing is working. Everything's locking up. So that's good morning, Ian. Good morning, Team Randall. Good morning, Matt. Good morning, Andre. A crappy van is consistently leaking oil. EGLD ripping today should have gotten more on the dip. Yep. So, again, just talking that through. I mean, Solana's made its big move. Who knows where Solana goes from here? Now, why did Solana make as big of a move as it did? Well, I mean, from a tech perspective, there are some very interesting things going on with Solana. I'm going to take these off. There are some interesting things going on with Solana. The technology is pretty unique in some aspects. So if I go over here, they've got the whole proof of history thing actually isn't used in consensus. It's just used in orchestrating the system. So if you hear this proof of history thing, you see, yeah, so introducing proof of history. It's not actually the consensus mechanism. The consensus mechanism is actually proof of stake, but proof of history is used in organizing the blocks so that they can have kind of parallel, very fast block times, very, very fast block times. That's really kind of the innovation there on Solana. Yeah, Outrun is just getting started. I would agree with that. Oh, you know what? I have this fan on. I hope that wasn't too distracting for you guys. I have these headphones off. I can hear what's going on back here a little bit better. All right. But back to the Bitcoin chart. I mean, the main thing that I'm watching here is I'm watching for a resumption signal out of this consolidation pattern on Bitcoin myself. It came into the 200. Looks like we're getting a nice bounce off the 200. So look at it from a daily perspective. Assuming we close a green daily today, we get back above this level. Now I did have purchases, and unfortunately I'm not going to get my order filled, I don't think. But here's the next resistance that we just broke through. We'll see if we can close above. It looks like 46.8. But this is going to form a little bit of support right at the 200. So we'll see if we stay above this. Now this is kind of low volume too. The only problem with this is a very low volume as far as what I'm seeing. But given where we're at, Bitcoin is extremely bullish still. If you look at the on-chain data, it's extremely bullish. I was, kind of watching to see what would happen around this 200 because somewhere between the 200 and the 50, let me go to a different chart here, is where I would be saying that we need to probably trim some spot. That's where I was looking to trim some spot. Now I shared this chart on Twitter. I don't think I posted it to a broad audience on Twitter. But what I'm kind of looking at here is if you take this top over here, through this price action through here, you can see this is where we kind of got support. So I was really looking at this zone right here as my, okay, if we get below that zone and we confirm down, this is where I'm going to have to probably exit that spot position I picked up on this breakout over here. So I'm doing a fresh chart so I can kind of show you guys fresh. So you had that most important trend line in crypto, which cuts through here and here. But I'm watching this one now because the reason I'm watching this one is we already had a retest of it and a second retest of it. But now, and then we also had this on the dailies. If you take through here on the daily closes, this is the Gemini chart, so all these look a little bit different. We picked up that spot on this breakout over here. Been riding that spot. I was looking at this was my signal to have to trim some spot. Now, of course, I've gotten stopped out on leverage, so I'm waiting on a fresh entry on leverage, which is going to come for me if we can get a good break, retest, resumption of this little bit of consolidation. But what's likely also going to happen then is we're probably going to put in, come into some resistance here and put in some more consolidation, and then you're going to have a new trend line to watch. So say it were to stop right here, which it probably won't, but this is the consolidation I've been watching on Bitcoin. Now Bitcoin's starting to resume here. What was starting to concern me was the behavior of Bitcoin dominance as well, I'll tell you. So we might be getting a nice double bottom here. So Bitcoin started to try to break out on that big sell-off at the top of this wedge. But on the Bitcoin dominance chart, I'm thinking that we're starting to come into maybe a little bit of a double bottom on this chart here as well. The reason it was concerning me is we broke to the downside of this wedge. Then we have kind of a pseudo early alt season, and so that might change the trajectory of a lot of the things that we had planned. Let's take a look at comments as well here. Good morning. Hi Brandon, who knows short-term PA will be, but I would much appreciate discussing what circuit breaker levels for BTC, taking some off. You know you're wrong. Matt Hardy. So I answered that without looking at your question. Yeah. So that was my, I know this is where I got back in, right? And I know I'm wrong if we get closed below that. So, on spot, I don't keep a stop loss on spot, right? I just will rotate spot onto exchanges and or connect my wallet to a decentralized exchange or whatever and exchange out as I need to. But that's, for me, for spot, that is, that was the level right there to watch to start trimming spot. And then obviously my 120-day SMA, if we get below that, we close a daily below this, as soon as we get confirmation below that, that's why I'll be out back completely on the sidelines. So that's my safety net. This is my parachute, right? The problem is all this price action downward. The 120 is still kind of slowly trending downward, whereas the 200 kind of maintained its upward slope and kind of just leveled off here. The 120 is kind of been losing ground. It's about to pick back up. So you look at 120 days from ago from here, I believe, yeah. So right around, you see these big red candles. When these start to fall off of what's being calculated in the 120-day, you'll see the 120-day quickly turn upward. So about right here, so about September 20th, the 120 is going to start to curl upward pretty aggressively as we get closer. From the 12th through the 20th, you'll see the 120 start to curl upward and probably come meet this trend line we were watching here. So yep, the other thing I was looking at, what I was kind of concerned about was on the leverage positions. When you break this, this could move pretty large, pretty fast. Let me show you an example of that. Now hopefully we get some consolidation kind of like this, but a lot of times when you break that downtrend, here's kind of a double bottom, similar looking behavior. You see how fast it broke up out of here? So you may not get your retest resumption for a while is also what I'm kind of looking at. So this is a very kind of similar, this is more of a double bottom, that quick wick down there, and then we had that bounce back over here. Now the one thing we all have to be cognizant of, you see the Wyckoff guys putting out their, the similarities between the price action, peak, 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 quick sell-off. So I'm being really, really cautious here. My next, for me, my next leverage entry will be a quick scalp, and I will, on the first sign of weakness, I will be pretty quick to trim that, knowing that I might miss out on some upside, but I'll have to re-enter again. I don't feel like getting yet another break-even or small loss leverage trade. I want to take a win this time. So I'll be watching for a similar pattern, a fractal to play out as what played out over here, right? And if we get that, here's how I know we're going to get that, right? Again, you just take, we'll have some sort of breakout level, and we'll know that we're starting to curl over here. You see this kind of curl over. Looks like this is like kind of curling over here. So when you see that start to happen, then you got to find yourself a nice trend line that you trust through there. And when you break down out of that, that's your signal to go ahead and trim. So but the problem is that we might not get the ability to add until over here. So this is exact fractals. What's interesting to me is it's playing out so similar. So I'm having a hard time kind of really navigating around this because I don't know that we're going to get a good clear entry signal, and we might get a rollover. If we do, then we just have to keep an eye on it. Maybe spot's the best play here for now, because this is kind of tough. This is engineered. I'm going to say engineered, but this is extremely difficult to navigate. And when you see this curling over, I mean, you can see the indications that you have a loss. The problem is last time all my key moving averages helped us immensely. So we lost to 50. I was able to re-enter on the 120 touch, which I guess I probably could have on the 200 here. And then once we lost the 50, the problem is I don't have a 50. I have maybe a 20. Let's go up here with the 20. So maybe that's the level we look for. You see how we bounced off the 120 up into the 50 and then curled over? There's probably some other horizontal levels that are probably more impactful. This peak over here is pretty close to where you topped out at, right? So we'll just keep an eye on that. If that's some sort of distribution pattern, I see a lot of people posting it. I kind of wonder myself if so many people, if this is, I don't want to say it's engineered, but this could be engineered price action. If this is being engineered to make it look like this fractal over here, and it rips to the upside, and people are trying to maybe short as we come into resistance over here somewhere, or what, people sell. But, I mean, I got shaken out of my leverage, so the market did its job. All right, let's take a look at comments. eGold is on Coinbase custody, so there's a good chance it will go on Coinbase and pump hard. It's worth locking your Elrond and staking for a small yield or risk missing out on selling a large peak? Yeah, I locked mine up. I mean, I'm planning to hold it through the remainder of the market cycle, so I'm looking at a few months before I'm looking to sell my Elrond. So yeah, I mean, I think it's worth staking for sure. Thoughts on when you compare BTCD from the same period? Oh yeah, yeah. If you look at BTCD the same time period again, that it is very similar. It's playing out very similar. So let's see here. From 2017, from July, yeah, right here. Is that what you're talking about? July. Yep. So this big drop, and then we had this very similar looking pattern. Let's grab that. Let's grab that pattern here. So remember, there's a big drop that preceded all this that we're not going to see on this little pattern per se show up properly. You kind of get the idea. Yeah, so it dropped from there. Let's just drag this right over here. It's pretty close indeed. We came in, so we had a quick precipitous drop from this point over here, and you'll see how this all played out in kind of a similar fashion last cycle. The main difference is, of course, if I overlay this as best I can, we were up, whereas this was down over here. A little bit of an inversion on that particular fractal, and then the price appreciation started earlier, and then we went down instead, right? So the main differences are this inversion here, and then where Bitcoin dominance went down and it went up last time, right? So that's a very different behavior, but I guess you could possibly I think it's probably better up to line it up like this, be more accurate, and then discount this wick as super low liquidity on this side over here. I think that's probably just to stretch it, but I'm not the type to try to like play this and figure this out exactly. But big drop, consolidation, double bottom bounce, and this is kind of again, I would discount this. This was like a outlier. So really the price actually was more like this, right, on that Bitcoin dominance. And what that means is Bitcoin dominance is how much percentage of the market cap Bitcoin is to the rest of the crypto market cap. So if Bitcoin dominance is dropping, that means altcoins are doing better. If Bitcoin dominance is rising, that means Bitcoin is doing better in relation to altcoins, right? So I'm kind of hoping for a retest resumption signal. Would make me feel better about the state of this if we get more of a consolidation retest resumption here. So I'm looking at the 1 hour, look at the 4 hour here. We did have a nice little breakout though, and this trend line right here, this trend line goes all the way back to the peak of last cycle, through the peak in January, the low of March. And that's kind of, you can draw it as a channel too. I believe this lines up pretty well if you draw it as a channel. I've seen people do this, yeah. You get some decent line up there of these peak lows, that peak high. Probably adjust it a little bit to be a little bit more on, and then I suppose we could draw this as a gigantic channel. Does it line up on the bottom here? I believe I've seen this too. Yeah, lines up pretty well there. That low, that peak, that little bit of a low there. So that's the channel we were looking to come back into. So this particular part of the price action is a bit dicey just because we're right on the edge. The one thing is I'll say is, you look at just some of the core metrics. Let's go to the Glassnode here. Let me see if I can pull up some core metrics here. Look at some core on-chain metrics, and this is what keeps me in my bullish bias, and this keeps me, basically, I'm going to give how I use my on-chain indicators. Is it if I'm thinking that something's going to roll over, I'm going to put really tight stops. I'm going to be not too scared to exit a position type of thing, and I'm not going to be too quick to take long entries. Whereas if the fundamental analysis is very bullish, and on-chain would be kind of an extension of fundamental analysis, then I'll let my fundamental analysis color my bias, right? And so I might take more aggressive entries to the long side. I might be more forgiving on the downside with my stops and when I exit. So where that comes into play, if I remove all this, these drawings here, just simplify this chart down to a few moving averages. Where this comes into play is, more aggressive about buying coming into long-term SMAs if the on-chain is bullish. I'm waiting longer for confirmation on the downside before I exit. So I wouldn't just exit on a daily close below the 200 or the 50, my spot. What I would do is I would wait for confirmation, right? Because my on-chain and my fundamental analysis is very bullish. So what I don't want to happen is to get shaken out of position and have, what Bitcoin likes to do is bounce right back. When things are looking kind of bleak for it, it likes to find a quick bottom and bounce back pretty hard. And that's just the nature of trading crypto. So, it's over here, an example of that was we were still pretty bullish, but the on-chain started turning sour right through here pretty much. Right, so we had this big drop, and then coins started coming onto exchange pretty aggressively as we got this bounce, and that was a strong indicator that something was wrong. So this is where we were out of leverage over here, and over here. Now I still waited for my typical confirmation, but I was pretty quick to go ahead and exit all my tradable spot through here. The same thing would be true over here. If I started seeing, so on this bounce, right, another indicator that we could be headed for, I guess that's a really good point. I need to look closely at that. I was thinking about this last night. I need to make notes, remind myself of what I need to focus on when certain things start to unfold. If we're looking for this type of price action to roll over and to be some type of another distribution event, coins will probably start coming onto exchange pretty aggressively during this bounce. So assuming we get a bounce out of this similar type of sell-off, consolidation, and get a quick bounce out of here, then we should probably see, go to the 1 hour on accident, sorry. We should see a bunch of coins coming into exchange, and then the on-chain turn from short-term bullish to bearish. And if we see that, then this is an indication that we need to be very quick to rotate out on weakness. So like right here, maybe I could have sold some more spot over here with that color of that on-chain analysis rather than waiting for this point right here, right? But at the end of the day, that on-chain can change pretty fast too. So it would take quite a bit. Let me show you what we're looking at right now for the, the net in and out of exchange 2020, 2021. Why is this? All right, let me zoom in here. Let me just go to my exchanges dashboard real fast. 1 second. This is the easiest way to illustrate this particular chart. All right. Let me take a picture of this and share it live here. Let's go back to the beginning of 2020. Let's look at balance on exchange. This is kind of the main thing that I watch. There's other metrics I watch, but here's your balance on exchange, right? And so again, what I was talking about, it was aggressively coming down, and then if you look at the coin started coming on exchange right before this drop. This time we had coins coming off of exchange into the drop, which is just an anomaly. And then we had coins coming onto exchange, right through here. A little bit of coins coming onto exchange as the price went up. Coins were coming onto exchange as opposed to that trend of going downward. And then during the big drop, right after the big drop, coins came on exchange really fast all through here, and it was just constant selling pressure. And then when we got that kind of spring, I guess, you look at the chart on here, it looks very white coffee, and that spring right there, then you see coins coming off of exchange. Somebody bought a whole bunch right here, right? That was a big, huge nuke out of somebody bought a bunch of coins, and then it's been on an uptrend since then. So that's what we'll be looking for. Let's see if we can't get some indication of what if on-chain continues. Now, as of right now, yesterday was another based on so we delay that 24 hours. So we look 24 hours later for on-chain. We look at give the algorithms 24 hours to update, wallet addresses, map them. There's new wallets that are involved in big transfers to figure out if they belong to an exchange or not, and to map all those coins to an exchange. And if they are, so 24 hours, roughly 24 hours after the transfers happen, it's about a 24-hour lag. We can tell whether we had a net inflow or outflow of coins on or off exchanges for the prior day. And so as of yesterday, let me go show that chart real fast. As of yesterday, it was still a net decline. So we haven't seen any new coins come on exchange. They continue to come off, get pulled off the exchange, which is a very, very key metric to keep in mind. Let me go back to my exchanges. Balances on exchange. Here's our transfer volumes, right? I'll take a screenshot of this for you guys and share it real fast. From the beginning of 2020, let's go to 2021 here. Let's go up just to a more recent time frame. All right, let's take a screenshot of this picture, and I'll share this one here. All right, so yeah, this is our current state. All right, so again, you look at kind of the pattern here. You see this the initial sell-off we had, right? And back in March, or is it May? I always forget. I get so confused. Hold on. 2 seconds. That was April and May, yeah. And then March was the big May. March is good, yeah. Okay. So it's April to May. Let's go double check. I'm losing track of months now. So you see April, we had pretty much a outflow, and then you had this big burst of coins coming onto exchange. This other chart will probably show it better, actually. Yeah, I mean, you can see it here. But as of now, we had this big draw, humongous, that big spike down right as we came out of the gates of that consolidation, right at 32,000. Right as we resumed, it was right around 34,000, I guess it was. That's right. It was around when we started to resume out of there. All of a sudden, we had this big, huge burst of price, and a ton of coins came off exchange. So somebody very large bought that day. And ever since then, it's been kind of back and forth. But the last couple of weeks, really, through late August, early September, have been a lot of coins coming off of exchange, which again shows up here as you see this very precipitous decline. That means that people are taking their coins off of exchange. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that people are more educated about self-custody, and so people simply are no longer just buying and keeping their balances on the exchange. They're taking those coins off of the exchange and self-custodying them. But ultimately, what it also means is that there's less sellers available, right? So the more of that trend that you see as coins come off of exchange, it means people are intent on holding those coins. And if they're taking them actively off an exchange, they're looking to lock those up for at least a few months, if not several years, and not sell them. And so when you see an influx of coins onto exchange, they may not sell that very day, but people are anticipating selling, right, in general. So we kind of watch those trends very, very closely. All right, let's go look at comments here. So I'm really, really hopeful that unlike this over here, where we got this very big spring out of here and never a signal. Let's go look at the low time frames. Let's see if we ever got a signal. I want to study this pretty carefully here just to make sure. Yeah, and so you see not quite the same exact pattern. Obviously, here you had a similar consolidation, but you had this lower low that created that fresh supply that got tapped right there right at 47,000. So we had this little spring. We had a nice response here from 47 to 51, and then you had this bigger sell-off. No, not a bigger sell-off per se than this, but we had a lower low and then a very strong spring out of there. Now, on a 1 hour, it just went straight up, barely retested this little breakout level and that little wick right there, and then just kept going. That's a super low time frame, 1 hour. Now, I don't trade on the 1 hour. I do use the 1 hour just to get kind of a real fine-grained, granular view of what's going on with the markets. So that's just, it helps me dial in trend lines and things like that. My signals come on the 4 or the 12, depending on the state of the market that we're in. So coming out of here, this might come out of here like a cannon. I would probably take a small entry on a 4 hour, and then we'll play it from there myself. All right, let's take a look at comments. Everyone jump on Riven. Next big thing. Not Ravencoin, Rivian. It's a 4 million market cap. Okay. Elrond is awesome, says Tata. Yeah, so let's go look at the alts here. Back to the altcoin charts. Solana's cooling off here a bit today as Bitcoin. Let's see what Bitcoin dominance chart's doing. It's starting to bottom out. We might get another little peak down and hit a perfect double bottom right at 40%. That means that 40% of all of crypto's market cap would be comprised of Bitcoin. And that would be, historically at the end of alt season 2, the big alt season in 2018, we got down to 35% of the crypto market cap was Bitcoin. And then it bounced as high as, just earlier this year, when Bitcoin made its big breakout through January, it hit all up to 73%, right? So, we're looking for, we're at this stage, we're looking for a move, from like this was from 50 to 70, so maybe from 40 to 60 or 40 to 50 or something like that. So this was from 50, 60, 70, 20. Yeah, so that would be about right? So from 40, a bounce from 40 to 60 would be from a measured move perspective. I'm looking for a very similar measured move on Bitcoin when it breaks out a 40% move. So if we were to draw this as a 40% move off of this bottom line, if we get a double bottom, a 40% move puts us not quite into the box in that key 57 level that I was looking at. Cuts right there. We might come shy, be at 55. It might overshoot last cycle. We'll just have to take see where that we end up on that if we get that price action that we're kind of expecting. The reason I would feel better about getting an entry signal here would this it was a little bit unnatural, but I was looking at this too. Let me show y'all kind of what I was keeping an eye on here. I got several. Let me go to another chart. I'm sorry. I keep looking at Bitcoin charts, don't I? Let me look at some altcoins. Yeah, Elrond. I mean, honestly, so this right here. If we drew this through this price action through here, I was watching this last time. Yep. So we got a nice, bounce off of this, but we quickly curled over. So it didn't give you much of an opportunity to take a whole lot of profit. You could have very quickly, but that's pretty aggressive profit taking for my style of trading. That's tough. But at least, hopefully, you don't take any losses on any trades. That will give you the ability, if you take some entries on, if you would have taken entries over here, which I think I did, I don't remember anymore, slept since then. This would give you the opportunity to move your stop loss up to break even at least. So over here, same thing. Hopefully we get an entry much closer to this breakout level. Again, that would make me feel a lot better about the way the price action is playing out. It seems to be cooling off just a little bit right at 47. Let's see if there's a level here that we need to keep an eye on. It's right here. This is going to be our resistance that we're fighting with. This is the Gemini feed, so probably a pretty decent feed to check this on. It's trying to break through that and close above that. That level, so that's 46,830. And then the next level, I guess, yeah, really, if you draw it right there, that's really what it's hitting. That's what it's hitting, I'm sorry. Just saw that. So we'll see if we get some consolidation between these two levels. You see there's definitely a range of resistance right there. So we tried to burst up through it, and it's kind of consolidating right there as the market continues to try to fight with that. I would look at the order book. The order book will tell me a lot about the odds of it breaking through versus retesting. Let me see if I can actually pull it up real fast. All right, well, we look so much at Bitcoin because that's the gauge of where things are going, and then the Bitcoin dominance chart. Am I not logged in? Good, I'm not logged in here. I can just share this. Okay. So we're looking at just order flow, and I can't zoom in because I'm not logged in. Darn it. Yeah, so this order book will tell you a lot. If you kind of learn to read the tape a little bit, you can see kind of the order flow, see what. You get an idea of what the algos are trying to do. You can see what you'll see is a lot of if somebody's trying to push, if an algo is trying to push the price one way or the other, a lot of times it'll wipe out the order book with a bunch of small entries that perfectly kind of match what's stacked up in the order book to get it to move price one direction. And then when it's done trying to move price, if it sees, it'll see gaps in liquidity, and it'll go for a purge of that, and it'll put a bunch of small orders in that perfectly eats up the order book on one side, and then that moves price on a very very short term basis, minutes. And then what it'll do is it'll come in on the other side if it's wanting to take a trade counter market. It'll put a bunch of large orders in, and try to make several large orders away from the spread, and just take a bunch of limit orders. And it'll try to, it's kind of a silent fill. Without moving the market, it can regain the position that the same position the algo used to move the market, say 2 or 3% or 1% or whatever. Crypto markets, it's trying to move it, several percent. Maybe in equity, it might be trying to move it 0.1%. But if it's able to move it, say 1%, it might be able to buy back the same position size it had, moving the price 1% by wiping out the order book, by waiting patiently for limit orders on the other side, and get the same position back, but only move the market 0.1%. So that's kind of that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for which direction are these short term, are these little robots trying to move the market. And without being able to zoom out on this and look at this more closely, I don't really know, but it looks to me like, if I had to guess, what actually just happened here was a bait. Like, this was a fake breakout to the upside, and it's a little bit of a bait and switch. So this was to bait longs in, based on what I'm seeing on that order book here. It looks like they very quickly hammered the long side and got this price to go up very quickly on low liquidity, low volume, low liquidity. It can do that. Like early in the morning, it just did that. Maybe what happened. And it's slowly trying to inch the price back down. That's my guess. So you can move it up on very low volume, and then you can sell, in large orders. They can sell. So we'll see if this resistance ends up holding here. What's great about this as a trader is I'm happy that these games are being played, because it's given me a retest of this support level I was watching for now a potential entry. So I can keep an eye on this to see if we get some resumption here, and then we'll know that we have a buyer that's stepping up, or buyers that are stepping up, that's going to maybe continue to push the market higher. But I think it was pretty low. I looked at the volumes last night. It was very, very low. Actually, I can pull it up for you live. Hold on. That's something I can share. Let's just take a look at the trading volumes here. Now, with trading volumes, you have to kind of aggregate. Oh man, it was super high volume. Oh, that was a sell-off. Yeah, sorry. It's delayed. Well, that's right. On the 7th, yeah, so super high volume on the sell-off was crazy high volume because of all the liquidations. But I need to see if the buying, I don't know if I got any good data on the hourly here. This has to aggregate. This aggregates across. Now, this doesn't include Binance, so that's kind of the one key outlier. But here on the hourly 9.9, the volume is picking up here this morning, actually, a little bit, as New York comes in, which is kind of not abnormal. But you see it was low volume overnight, and then, yeah, I don't know if that was a fake upside. It doesn't, seems like maybe not. Anyway, we'll keep a close eye on it. I'm hoping to get an entry signal here so I can actually take a proper entry. All right, take a look at comments. But Solana's cooling off, coming back down off of 200. Again, the technical innovations with Solana, this proof of history, I did post that kind of flaming message. It was late night, and I was like, it was me being kind of just myself and not filtering my comments. And I probably should have done a better job of filtering. I was pretty blunt with my assessment as I was reading through the white paper again. Or I wasn't reading through the white paper this time. I was actually just reading through a bunch of other technical stuff. But I went off, and this is utter garbage, blah, 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 blah. What I don't like about Solana, it's just when you look at the VC backing, so you get Alameda and FTX that are largely behind it. I see this very large requirements here, right? And you got it's got specific requirements around how the SSDs. It's a very high input-output IO, a very high IO operation type drives. And then I read this, Now this is I just took a little screenshot of a quick summary. But when I read the clustering, it kind of set me off. It felt like, I was like, man, this feels like they've engineered a way to call outsourcing their compute fabric. So it says like, I think basically calling the community and running its exchange for it. I mean, this is like standard high performance compute clustering, right? So if you wanted to build an exchange yourself, so say all of us in this chat room here today, everybody watching live right now, let's say we all wanted to start our own crypto exchange. Well, we're going to need, first of all, we need very high speed connectivity into the other major exchanges, right? So we need to build some connectivity there. But then we need some pretty good compute resources at the edge, very close to that, to place our orders as low latency as we can with the big ordering systems. But we need a very large backend to manage all of these orders as they come in and out. And if we want to do it in very high transactions, if we want to compete with like, NASDAQ and how many transactions per second it does a day, which FTX has aspirations of becoming like the next NASDAQ, right? But if we want to compete with like NASDAQ, I have to build a very high performance cluster. So I've got to have these very high performance, hardware intensive servers that have a lot of disk IO, a lot of memory, and a lot of compute power, a lot of CPU. And I'm going to build them in a cluster so as to scale them out, right? So I'm going to build clusters. I'm going to do high performance compute clusters, and I'm going to build these. So for both resiliency and for performance, I'm going to build out resilient clusters. So when I started reading the white paper, I'm like, they literally engineered. It felt to me like they engineered a solution, called it a decentralized, exchange, but they basically are outsourcing. They're having the community run this high performance compute cluster that you would need to build a centralized exchange that runs at very high performance. But all they're doing is they're pushing that out to the community, and they're paying you in this token that they created out of thin air. So without having to actually go get real venture capital funding to buy all the equipment and build the clusters and pay people to operate the clusters, you're going to launch a community, and you're going to pay them in a token that you minted out of thin air. So that's kind of what I read. Now, how fair that is, and I don't know, but the main thing is that that's the downside, right? That's what I see as the negatives around it. The positives are on Solana are the way the proof of history works. It allows for a very high performance consensus mechanism with extremely low block times. Is what it boils down to. So they can have extremely low block times, very fast finality, and very high performance. They were able to scale up the smart contract performance as well because of how they do the clustering. So again, it's kind of creative. It's basically, if I was going to build a high performance compute cluster to do something like a high performance exchange, this is exactly how I would go about building it. But what they're doing is they're adding in a consensus mechanism and calling it decentralized, which it kind of is. I mean, it technically it is decentralized because it's permissionless. The main thing is it's not so much decentralized as it's permissionless. They have not that many node operators as far as like compared to other major projects, but it is permissionless. So you can join the system without having permission to join and becoming a validator, right? And so that's the main piece of it is. So it's more permissionless than it is decentralized, I would say. So that's a pro. I mean, it's interesting that you can join and be paid to run a very high performance exchange compute cluster. You can be paid and sold to do that. That's kind of cool. But we'll keep an eye on it. It also has very real adoption. That's the one thing are they down? Are you kidding me? There we go. Website didn't pull. Now, Solana did go down. The main chain went down for several hours in December. So just keep that in mind. They're really pushing the limits of what they're pushing the edge, and I think I don't know if it was the founder or said basically their strategy was to move fast and break things, right? So that's all fine and well until you break something enough that people don't want to come back. So we'll see if that ever happens. But as of right now, like I said, they were down. Let's look at their chart. So the network went offline for several hours, locked up, and it was a known issue. So they said, but yeah, back here in December, all right, the whole network locked up. and I guess it didn't really sell off too bad. I think it was around the 20th. It didn't really sell off too bad at that, but this was a sell-off from the lockup of the network getting locked up. And then it bounced right back, right? So I guess it hit $1. That's insane. From $1 to $200, 200x, right? All right. Did you get a chance to look at FTM? I haven't looked at FTM. Phantom. How about Polkadot and these parachain auctions? Yep. Well, Polkadot's, you know, a nice hedge against kind of this chain maximalism. So Polkadot is, you know, obviously building more of an ecosystem, and they're just a core chain that a bunch of other projects will snap into. And those parachain auctions are, you know, awarding as we go. They've been awarding a parachain slots. So there's 128 available parachain slots on the main network, and then I think another 128 on Kusama, the secondary network. But getting on the main network, if you get selected, it's kind of pricey to be on the network. But Polkadot also has some very hefty node requirements as well. A bit of a drawback there. But I hold Polkadot more as a hedge against is Ethereum or Cardano, are these going to be an absolute winner? Because if we have this more, you know, not open ecosystem, but multiple chains that end up winning, Polkadot should do fairly well in that type of environment. You can almost think of, I mean, Polkadot's basically like a new age version of like Cosmos. Sold Solana at 9 and 12. Yeah, I mean, it's crypto. You know, we all see things unfolding and sell sometimes at the wrong time. I mean, I'm struggling with this Bitcoin price action myself a little bit. Made a good move. I like my move to Outrun. And, you know, I'm kicking myself for not moving more into Outrun. I mean, I'll be honest. I got to 3%. So 3% of my portfolio now, maybe slightly more because it's probably outperforming as of this very moment. But you know, I'll probably continue to rotate more into Outrun as we get buying opportunities. So I think for me, you know, when you see a project, when you see the writing, like you see the potential, and you also see that, you know, like in Solana's case, if you're a big fan of Solana and you really like the proof of history and the super fast block times and stuff like that, right? If you were a big fan of that tech, you know, when it was way down here, it was worth rotating some into and just holding and just letting it play out. Because you just don't know when the market's really going to gravitate to something in the crypto market, unfortunately. And Solana is taking advantage of, obviously, the NFT craze and the high gas fees. So the NFT craze is what's driving Solana. Solana is basically a play on the NFT craze, if you think about it. Because, you know, with Ethereum, you know, on the base layer, the high gas fees, people are looking for alternatives. And so you could either move to a layer 2 on Ethereum, but that's not a seamless transition from base layer to a layer 2. Or you can move to a totally different chain. And so I think, you know, some people have decided to go to the Solana NFT exchanges to play with NFTs. And that's really pumped up. The other thing, too, is Solana does have real adoption. So, I mean, I don't want to poo-poo it too much. They've got, I mean, it's exploded. Their ecosystem has just flat exploded the last, I don't know, 3-4 months. So it's not without merit that price is going up. It's definitely a good trade. You know, how sustainable that is. We've got a big, so October 1st, a bunch of the early VC coins are going to be unlocked. They'll be allowed to sell their coins. So we might have some downside pressure starting October 1st on Solana. You know, and you always have risk too. Again, the chain did totally lock up with a lot less load than it has now back here in December. So, you know, if you were to get an 8-hour outage again on Solana, I would imagine that you'd have a little bit of a sell-off there too. You know, so those type of things. There are risks. You know, again, for me, the next best opportunity, you know, this time last year I was talking all about Cardano, and I was all big on Cardano and Elrond. I'm not as, you know, forceful about Elrond as I was about Cardano last year as far as opportunities go because of where we're at in the cycle. And I really think the best opportunity is ultimately Bitcoin right now. It looks like he might be trying to resume here. Not going to give me a 4-hour signal. I really hope, here's my best case scenario. Hit this, come back, get us a nice signal in here for retest resumption, and then we'll have some good levels. This will be a really good stop. If you do take an entry on Bitcoin here, Bitcoin I think is the best opportunity just because it's the safest play. And you look at Bitcoin dominance, I mean, we're prime territory for a nice bounce on Bitcoin versus altcoins. So this Solana craze, NFTs, really push this back down. You know, who knows what kind of news could come out. You know, I don't know if Elon says, okay, we're accepting Bitcoin again for Teslas or what, right? Something, you know, whoever that big buyer was, go back to this chart, somebody big bought a lot. Like when you see like this big, you know, green spike, right? So they were buying all through there. Whoever that was buying right at the 32,000 spike all the way up to that peak, and they took those coins off of exchange. That big, huge decline in coins off of exchange, somebody very big stepped in and bought. Now, it wasn't Michael Saylor. It was somebody much bigger than Michael Saylor. Oh, maybe. How many coins is that? Like several hundred coins, I believe. It's not as much as I thought it was, actually. Look at the chart. It's 2,700 down to 2,500, roughly. But you know what? It wasn't just that person. So there were other people, you know, people moving coins on and off. But nonetheless, it was we saw a really big exodus of coins right through here. So I imagine it was a single entity. I don't know if we've tracked down. Maybe Willie or Will or somebody has actually tracked down who that entity was. Or maybe I haven't tried to find it yet. But I don't know if the wallet address that went to is known yet. But somebody large. So maybe when they announce that they bought Bitcoin, whoever that was, or like I said, you know, Elon says Tesla's accepting Bitcoin again or whatever. That could bring interest right back into Bitcoin and out of these altcoins, right? So that's kind of what I'm actually anticipating right now. So I've gotten pretty thin. I took 10% more profit, 20%. I put 20% more profit right here as we broke down right here on Cardano. I took 20% more profit on Cardano and I rotated that to Outrun. You know, so I didn't rotate that actually to Bitcoin, but I'm still like 80% Bitcoin right now myself. I did take some trades in some alts too, but look, given where we're at this juncture, you know, it's not financial advice, just my opinion that Bitcoin is probably going to present the best opportunity for two reasons. One, if we do get like if this is some sort of distribution, so this was accumulation, this is another distribution going on here that matches, you know, the distribution we had earlier this year, right? If this were to play out, the reality is that if you are holding Bitcoin, it's going to be more forgiving for you to get out, because when the sell-off starts, the altcoins are going to be down precipitously more than Bitcoin will be, right? So it's a little bit of a hedge against uncertainty and the potential downside. So if we were to get this, you know, this type of pattern, we were to get this breakout and hit this resistance and roll over. When this rollover happens right through here, right when it starts to really break down, you're going to be able to get out on Bitcoin with a lot less losses than your altcoins. That's part one. That's why I would be very cautious about buying altcoins right now. Too many of them. But part two is also something positive. It could go the other way, right? So this could be a, I mean, Frank, I don't, know, but this could be an engineered fractal to make it look like this. And so when all this starts to play out, people are going to be looking for the downside. You get a fake down and a bounce up, and it ends differently than this one ended, right? With it going up instead of down. But those are just my random thoughts here. But yeah, I mean, Elrond outside of Bitcoin is the next best opportunity to me, but it's running here a little bit, coming into some potential resistance. If you look at this, is what I would focus on very much so, is the Bitcoin chart. I mean, you can trade, depends on where you want to focus. They're very similar, coming into resistance here, but this is where the chart I'd be focused on. So it's going to come into some resistance as we hit. This is actually the level that we're going to want to hold right here, the daily close. See if we can't hold that. But you're going to come into resistance through here. You're going to get another opportunity. Like this is made a big move. You'll probably get another opportunity to buy coming into that support, and then see if you get, maybe wait for resumption as well, like that did. But yeah, I mean, as I said, this could be the one that runs like Solana, But the problem is if Bitcoin really breaks out and kind of leaves altcoins in the dust, where does that leave? You know, what's Outrun going to do? Is Outrun going to front run Bitcoin through all that? Is Cardano? Is Solana? You know, some of these better, stronger projects will front run Bitcoin and stay ahead of it. But all right, let's take a look at comments and then I'm going to wrap up. My DC on Bitcoin is 43.5. Would y'all advise purchasing more or just hodl and wait for the dump in OTC? I'd rather buy if it dips under 40K. I mean, you just have to play what you're given, right? As far as I'm concerned, like if I simplify this all the way down, just to keep it super simple, not overly complicated. We did drop below this fib level. So that was something else we were watching. That might have been but at the end of the day, this is the level I was watching, 200-day SMA. And ultimately, when you're in a bull market, assuming you consider this a bull market, you know, you want to buy coming into major levels like that. That's where you want to add. So, you know, the 50-day was a great place to add when you touch the 50-day right there. We look at really what we did is we've got a confluence. The 50 is about to cross the 200. We came in, we wicked down to the 50. Ultimately, we kept closing above the 200. Now, this is a Binance chart, a little bit different look on the daily closes. I think if I go to another chart, a little bit tighter, a little bit closer, but it closed above it, and now we're pushing back up to the upside here. So this is where you want to buy, right? You want to take opportunities. When you have these big sell-offs, you want to buy into support and sell into resistance, right? And so that's just the way to play the game. So, you know, I don't know if we get down to 40, that'd be a touch of the 120. That would be a fantastic place to add if you have dry powder to add there. In theory, if we were to do that at this stage, the delta between the 200 at 46,000 roughly and the 120 at 40, you should be able to trim a little bit of spot if you lose the 200 because the 50 is going to match the 200 here pretty soon. Should be able to trim a little spot here and then try buying it back there for a nice bounce. And if it doesn't bounce and it rolls over, then you know quickly where you need to get out. Those are my favorite type of trades, right? Just to buy coming into an area where you know very quickly if I don't bounce, I know where to get out. All right, let's see if we get a short squeeze and this just takes off. I'm afraid it might. All right, guys, thoughts on Hex? I don't like Hex. It feels like a con to me. Thoughts on Phantom, Brandon? I don't have any thoughts on Phantom. I'm sorry, you asked me about that earlier. I forget what Phantom is, to be honest with you. Oh, it's DAG. Yeah, okay. So, a Phantom, Hash, Hedera, Nano, IOTA, you know, all these that are directed acyclic graphs, these are not blockchains, right? So there's a distinct difference between a directed acyclic graph and a blockchain. And the directed acyclic graph projects they show a lot of promise, and they can for a decent, they're still a decentralized ledger. They're just not you know, a block that's cryptographically assigned and linked to the next block like a blockchain. They work very differently. And so the big question is do they have the technology figured out, and do they have it dialed in? And you see, you know, HBAR was one that was getting a lot of hype earlier this year. And it looks like it's running again now here. But yeah, you see, this was the rage way back in March. Everybody, this was the Solana of March, right? HBAR was the Solana. It just kept going up and up and up, and everybody was so certain this was the next big thing. It was gonna Cardano was nothing. It was going to take out Cardano, and it was going to take out Ethereum, and it was going to take out everybody else, and then just kind of faded off, right? Because people are hesitant to deploy production applications on something that's still very developmental. And it's coming back now. So let's look at FTM. And it's launching, huh? Yeah, I mean, so honestly, I expect this to look like this. Right. You have this big launch, and then you have this big cool-off period, and then maybe some resumption far later in the future. So you're probably, my guess is on Phantom, you're about here on this chart. So you see this? Let's see how big of a lift-off that was, and then I'm going to wrap up on this thought. From that point to that point was a 1,400% gain. All right, let's see where we're at now. From here to here is a 1,100% gain. maybe get a little bit higher, and then the rest of the chart looks like about like it did for H-bar. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up here. I've got to run. Thank you all for your time. I hope it was a valuable session. We will see y'all next time.